out there, movie lovers, and maybe even especially music lovers, for this episode of Never Seen It. It's a podcast about movies that we haven't seen yet. I'm your host this week. My name's Betsy, and I'm here with Trent.
Hello, Betsy.
You faded that out really fast today.
I did. Well, you had more things to say.
Well, today is our last episode of April and our last in our series, I'm with the Band. This is going to be a special episode for me because this is yet another movie I've been trying to get Trent to watch for a really long time. Today we're going to 2000, so we started in 2001, we're ending in 2000 with Cameron Crowe's movie, Almost Famous. Trent, I have seen this movie many, many times. You have never watched this movie.
I have never.
But what do you know about it?
So as you said, it is a Cameron Crowe movie. We have covered one Cameron Crowe movie so far.
I believe so. I think we have only talked about Say Anything on one of our Patreon shows.
Okay, then. What I know about Cameron Crowe is that he's very much a music guy, and I think a lot of his movies have to do with music in some fashion or another. Kind of like the guy who did the Sing Street movie, but, not Irish. But Almost Famous, I know, is a movie that has to do with a kid who is following a band around. I think this is a fictional tale, but kind of based on Cameron Crowe's real life when he worked for Rolling Stone, right?
You're on the right track. Yes, Cameron Crowe kind of started as a music journalist and then he got into filmmaking. So this is not verbatim like stuff that happened, but it's based on, inspired by real stories about this time and place. Some of them that he went through, some that are just stories that people talk about different bands in the 1970s.
So an amalgamation of stuff that he experienced, but maybe heightened up a little bit, and some people that he met along the way and things like that. A movie. But I think this is also set in the 1970s, which we should be really excited about. I do not know who the kid is, who the actor is. I know Kate Hudson is like a groupie who follows them around too. And I know Jason Lee is a member of the band. This is kind of before anybody knew who Jason Lee was. He was in a couple of Kevin Smith movies up to this point. And I know that this is a rock group that he's following around, and Jason Lee is maybe a singer. I don't actually know who else is in the movie here other than him and her. But as far as the plot, I feel like it is just going to be a whole bunch of misadventures where he is following the band around and he's having a good time.
Well, I can tell you there are definitely going to be some people that you recognize that you have not named.
I'm sure.
In roles small and large, because there's a lot of random people that show up as like cameos and things. But that's the kind of movie it is.
I'm really curious if there's going to be any real musicians here. Because I don't think that this is a real band that he is following around as depicted in the movie, but I want to know if there are real artists that are going to be appearing. That would be cool.
Well, I guess you're going to find out because we are going to go and watch Almost Famous, and then we will be right back. And we're back. Trent, at long last, I get to ask you, what did you think of Almost Famous?
That was excellent.
It's such a good little movie, and it's weird that it's something that actually has sort of gotten a cult status, a cult following, because despite having been nominated for Oscars, this movie didn't really do very well at the box office.
And that's really surprising to me because there's so many different people in this movie that have went on to become big, big stars. It's really a nice story that, as I said in the intro, it is an amalgamation of what Cameron Crowe really did and all the people that he encountered. It really gives a sense of what it was like to actually travel with the band, what the bands really get up to, what the people are really like, what they're thinking.
But it also so thoroughly paints a picture of what this was like in the late 60s and the early 70s, where music went through such a revolution along with everything else in America,
Yeah.
that you watch this and it makes you nostalgic for something you never experienced.
Totally. I mean, I was feeling jealousy watching this movie. Not just to, be on the bus with the band or be backstage or be at the concerts. I think the feeling that I got was that I didn't actually go down this road. We have talked about this before where I wanted to be a journalist. At one point in my life, that was what I wanted to be. I didn't know, what kind of journalism I wanted to get into, but this kid really did it. And I'm a 40-year-old person. I've worked in an office for the past 15 years plus, really. I've never really done anything as interesting as what this kid did at the age of 15. And the feeling that I think that I'm really longing for is just being unshackled to a desk, being unshackled to a job, to just be this kind of freelancer. And that's a bad word to really say, but just be able to do the work that you want to do and be paid for it.
But it's not even just that. It's all of the people who are on this tour with the band who are not being paid to be there, who are not in any way getting anything out of this except what it does for their spirit.
Yeah.
What it does for their soul. The experience of going on the road with these bands and going on tour to support the music because they love it. They are not getting anything else out of it.
And besides like the music point of it, what I said about being unshackled, that's really what I mean. You don't have to worry about paying rent or paying bills or going to a job at 9 o'clock in the morning or anything. You have zero responsibilities. You get to hang out with cool people, have these people become your best friends, and really just have no worries in the world. The only thing that this kid really has to worry about is getting yelled at by his mom.
Yeah, and Penny encapsulates that whole feeling where they're on the bus and he says, I have to go home. And she waves her hand and says, you are home.
I felt that moment so much, Betsy. That is what I want. I don't have to worry about a place where my stuff is. I don't have to worry about a family or a girlfriend or a wife or a pet or anything. I'm living in the moment. I'm with the people that I want to be with, and I'm having a good time. This is not work. That is what I felt in that moment. And yeah, that's where the jealousy really comes in. Wow.
It's also where she points out this isn't reality. It's drawing the line between this is the life we're living, but it isn't real. This is all just the tour. This is what we are when we're on the road. And eventually we do all have to go home, but it's a game of how long can you prolong this feeling? How long can we all avoid saying goodbye to each other?
Yeah, and she is really living it because she doesn't even go by her real name. She can be whoever she wants to be as long as, at least in her own mind, she is helping the band and the band accepts her as helping them.
But that's what everybody is doing. The band all have girlfriends and wives at home.
Right.
On the road, they do not. All of these people who are the Band-Aids, who the hell are these girls? They're just free spirits jumping on the bus and going where they're going. Yeah.
Yeah. But also, William is getting something out of this too. And the band is getting something out of William. So everybody is kind of using everybody, but they don't care. It's kind of an unspoken thing until it's spoken about. And then, reality comes calling. When he finally turns in the article and the gal calls the band to confirm the quotes and some of the stuff that they got up to, they're like, yeah, it happened, but I don't really want people to know that it happened. Not in that way. I don't sound cool.
I sound like a jackass. Like, please don't make me look so uncool.
Right.
But it's all part of that fantasy again. They all are admittedly living in this fantasy. It is not the real world, and they just want to look cool. And when they are presented with the reflection of what somebody has observed them doing and saying on tour, they're like, fuck, we are a bunch of dicks. What are we even doing here? No, deny it, deny, because he cannot publish that. But when they actually confirm the story, they actually get to be on the cover of Rolling Stone. Because people who are fans care more about the reality than the fantasy. They really want to know you.
Yeah, the authenticity, I think, is what sells here, which is why all the editors were so excited to hear about what this kid was writing about. Asking him, did this really happen? Did he really say it this way? And sure enough, yes, they did. Because the fantasy of what being a rock star actually is way more interesting than what reality is, because for the most part, you're traveling everywhere, you're on the bus with a bunch of stinky other people, you don't get to sleep in your own bed, you're constantly being approached by strangers and hangers-on, you get no privacy whatsoever. Those are the negative portions of it. The stuff that he writes about are the interesting things. And it's the unvarnished truth that I think people are really clamoring for, and which is why, you know, when famous people are interviewed and they're a little bit loosened up, it's why podcasts are really, really popular. They're long form conversations where people can actually be real with you in a way that they can't really do in an interview where a journalist has like 5 minutes to sit down with you. I have 3 questions that I can ask, then I got to get out of here.
And the person being interviewed sits through like 12 hours of that shit, and then they're left alone. That's the other thing about it. You are so at the center of attention, and then everybody goes home for the day and you're by yourself. If you remember that Lady Gaga documentary from quite a few years ago, she talked about that. It's like a thing about having extreme anxiety about the whole situation because it's constantly loud and moving and there's noise and then there's silence. And your body doesn't know how to fucking regulate that dramatic shift to everything that you're experiencing throughout the day.
Which is why a lot of these artists, they need an entourage. They need to have people around them constantly in order to keep that cacophonous noise going.
It's also unfortunately why so many people get into drugs.
Sure. And I'm glad that they don't really gloss over that. Yeah, I know that this is a fictional story, but I mean, it's the fucking 1970s, guys. This is rock music, and you can't expect a squeaky clean version of what was really happening. In my opinion, this is the cleaned up version.
Yeah, it touches on some of the things. Like, we're acknowledging that in the 1970s, rock stars, they liked him young, as they say. And in 2026, it's really icky to think about all the stuff that was just kind of okay culturally 50 years ago.
It's always been icky.
It was
just a lot more, I don't know, kind of accepted. And even watching the movie, I wasn't grossed out by it. Is that weird? Maybe because I just expect rock stars to hang out with teenagers or just the hangers-on that like to follow bands around.
I think it's because they don't linger on it. Like when we're introduced to Penny, she says she's 16, and then we never talk about that again. So like we get it out of the way to establish that both she and William are very young. But then we kind of don't talk about it. And the fact that Kate Hudson was 21 when she made the movie helps.
Yeah.
And she's extremely charismatic throughout the movie. So I think your brain is willing to like forgive it, just like throw that piece of information away. Even though there's probably people who are going to glom onto that one fact, and that's all you can think about watching Almost Famous if you watch it now for the first time.
Of course.
But I don't want to get into the weeds on that topic. So since we're here, let's just talk about Kate Hudson.
Yeah.
Because I feel like this is such an iconic role, an iconic performance. What did you think of her in this movie?
I was extremely impressed because obviously this is the first time I have seen this movie. I know that she kind of got famous from this movie. I've only ever seen a few Kate Hudson movies since this. And to be honest, I kind of don't like Kate Hudson in the other stuff that I've seen. But I'm extremely impressed. I got the emotion out of her. I got the youth, but also the maturity at the same time. And the moment I think really got me the most is when the kid admits, hey, you just got traded away for some beer. And she responds with tears in her eyes asking, what kind of beer was it? What was I traded away for?
She's upset, but she's also able to make a joke.
And she knows how this goes. This is maybe not the first time she's had to go through something like this, but I could see the hurt behind her eyes. I could really hear the hurt coming out of her voice. And I know, I mean, Kate Hudson, you think about her as an actress and as a person, she does seem like she is this character, which is maybe why she's been, cast as this kind of character in the future, where she is this kind of hippie, fun-loving girl that is game for anything, which is really what you need in a movie like this.
But the difference between all those movies that came after and this one, all of those are cheap imitations. They feel super shallow. They feel really gross. This one has lots of layers. There is a lot more going on with her here. She feels way more real than any of those other characters that came later.
Absolutely. And I would say I agree with Cameron Crowe's assessment, where I read in the trivia that his favorite scene in the movie is when Kate Hudson is just dancing around the empty kind of floor in the aftermath of one of the shows. All the garbage is strewn everywhere. It's probably just disgusting, but she's out there dancing barefoot and just having a good time by herself. She is completely in her element in every portion of this movie until she goes home.
Because it's the thing we were saying. It's the reality creeping in. She's Penny Lane when she is out on the road, but she has not told anybody this whole fucking movie what her real name is, because everybody knows her name's not Penny Lane.
Of course not.
After the Beatles song, come on now, kids. So when she actually tells William her big secret, her name is fucking Lady Goodman. It's a terrible name. She was right to change it. That's the first time she kind of crosses the worlds, where suddenly she has let somebody in on her reality within this world of make-believe.
I think she also is recognizing that the kid here, he has genuine feelings for her, and she's not used to that. The feelings that she catches from the people around her are all very fleeting. This kid's feelings are real and deep.
It's young love. He's a teenager, and he's never been in love before, and he's never experienced life before.
Right. Which is why when I think back to the scene where the rest of the Band-Aids deflower the kid, they're having this moment here where she is like hiding her eyes, but then peeking through, and just, that's why I think the age of her is very undetermined, because I don't think that she would have ever gotten with him in that way, because I think she is actually older. Maybe not that much older, but older than 16. That's just my opinion.
I think she's just an old soul, Trent.
That
She is
too.
destined for this life of greatness of her own design.
But you know what? So is he. He reminds me so much of myself in that way. You know me, Betsy. I've been an old man since I was a child. And the fact that his mother pushed him forward 2 grades just adds into his kind of fucked up life.
He's in high school and he's 11 years old. No fucking wonder you're a mess kid.
Oh man, when they did the flash forward in time where he goes from being a boy to being in high school, the scene that directly follows that, everybody's just giving him high fives and saying, hey man, what's up, man? But in reality, everybody's just making fun of him because they put a fucking sign on the marquee.
And I should note that we started watching the untitled version, which is the director's cut of this movie. But then I made Trent switch it because I was like, I ain't got time for an almost 3-hour movie today.
Yeah, we started watching the director's cut that was 2 hours and 40 minutes long. But we discovered, oh, actually, we have things to do today, so let's just do the regular version.
So yeah, that thing you just referenced is actually in the director's cut version. But yeah, it's a theme of his life. He is wise beyond his years. He's younger than everybody else in the room, but he's also really smart. He's really talented. And he's a little fanboy who actually really loves this stuff. And he just sort of talks his way into it. And that's the element that holds truth as far as Cameron Crowe is concerned, because he was this guy. He was a teenager who loved music, and he kind of talked his way into a job at Rolling Stone. And that's fucking insane.
Yeah, and honestly, it really comes down to your own talent. If the writing and if the work is good enough, it shouldn't matter how old you are.
And if you have the chutzpah to do something with it,
Right.
if you are a relentless little shit who will talk to the right people and not give up, they show it here. This kid knows Lester Bangs is in town. I know who he is. I'm a fan, and I've been sending him my writing. He doesn't respond to any of it, but he's like, by God, I'm going to get it in front of him. And then he finds out he did read it, and he won't say goodbye. So he gets an assignment to go cover Black Sabbath. When he can't get into Black Sabbath, he gets in with Stillwater. He tells them, I know you guys. I know your sound. He compliments them. He talks his way into the venue. This is something that is in common with the movie we watched 2 weeks ago, where Connor in Sing Street has this weird confidence that I couldn't understand. William in Almost Famous is the same way. It's like, where did that come from? You are just so able in this situation to talk your way into things, which shouldn't work being 15 years old.
No, but it really just comes down to being confident. He is confident in his knowledge of the band and what the lyrics really mean in these songs. And when the guys in the band hear him talk about them, they also see an opportunity here along with the kid. They see, okay, well, this kid is actually a fan. We might consider him to be the enemy, as they keep on referring to him as. But if we can get him on our side, I don't think there was a conscious choice there. But it's the whole adage about, any press is good press, and yeah, we can let him backstage and he can write about whatever, but we're gonna not show him everything. But after a while, they realize, yeah, the kid's kind of cool. He's just kind of hanging out. He's not getting in our way. He is not saying, hey, you shouldn't do this, or calling the cops. He's just cool and hanging out.
Russell also pulls him aside and says, off the record, just make us look cool. That's all we care about.
Yeah.
You're going to write about us in Rolling Stone. That's awesome. But you can understand that there is a proximity problem here where you're going to see some things and you're going to experience some things that we don't want the whole world to know about.
Yeah.
And that's just life on the road, man.
They have to have an understanding here. And I think that's where the journalism conversation really comes in. Yes, of course. This is a rock band. You're on tour. There's going to be groupies. There's going to be beers. There's going to be drugs. And there's going to be shenanigans that people don't really need to know about because these are just people being people. We're not being a band here. My name is Russell. I have a social security number.
And it's okay to be friendly, but the best thing he can do is remain somewhat distant and write an honest article, because it's more important to be a good journalist than it is to be a good friend to these guys. Because the thing that people in this circle, in this industry, really hate and can spot a mile away are when journalists and publications clearly favor certain bands, and you can tell, oh, well, these guys are friends and we're doing things because they want us to, and not so much that it's the right thing to do and it's the honest thing to do.
Totally. Even when you think about like other journalism movies, like I think about The Post. The editor of the Washington Post was really good friends with JFK. And they talk about it in that movie in that, did JFK give me stories because we were friends, or did I pull my punches when it comes to covering him because we were friends? It's a real conundrum when you are friendly with your subjects.
It's a tightrope you have to walk.
Yeah. It really comes down to, if you are a good journalist, you listen and you observe and you write down what you hear and what you see. A journalist does not interact with their subjects to an extent that it is going to interfere with what you see and hear.
You're an anthropologist and nothing more.
Yeah. You're seeing things as they are happening, and it becomes history when you write it down.
Even if all you're doing is writing it down on tiny scribbles of paper and scraps and it's everywhere and it's chaotic.
There's only one way to learn, Betsy, and it's to fucking do it. And that's how he did it.
And we'll talk more about that and specifically the band that he is covering in this assignment in just a minute. We're going to take a quick break for a word from our sponsor, and then we'll be right back.
Critics everywhere are raving about patreon.com/neverseenitpod. Superfan Stephanie says, all this for $5 a month? Incredible. Phineas Butterfield of the New England Journal of Medicine calls it available content. Betsy's grandma says, "What's a podcast?" Don't miss your chance to experience this phenomenon. Join today.
So the band at the center of all the action of the movie is Stillwater. This is not a real band. They are kind of an amalgamation of a lot of different bands of this era that Cameron Crowe interacted with. So there's really not a specific touchstone that he is drawing from to create this group. But I love this band in the movie because they look so authentic. If you look at the four of them standing together, they feel like a real band from the 70s.
It really helps as well because they're kind of presented as they're the opening band for a much, much larger band, but that's not why we're here. We're covering and following the opening band as they go along on tour with the big band. But, of course, like a lot of other bands, opening bands eventually become very, very famous. And I think because they haven't really hit yet, they can be more open about how they're feeling. They can be, realistic about their chances of becoming a really famous rock group.
They're a little less guarded and jaded by the whole experience.
Sure. When Jason Lee is being interviewed for the first time, he's trying to be all philosophical about things like, the chicks are great, the money's great, but really, rock and roll will save the world. This is our mission. We're out here to save the world, guys.
He's an idiot.
Exactly.
He's an idiot. He is just trying to impress the journalist, despite the fact this is a fucking 15-year-old kid. And maybe that makes him want to impress him more because he's a fan, because he is 15 years old. They think they will get this kid to just write anything he wants him to write, which is a really, truly misguided way to approach any journalist of any age, because there are some really savant people out there who could fuck up your life if you say the wrong thing to them. There's also that moment later where he spends half the movie, William is trying to get a one-on-one interview with Russell, where Russell says, yeah, come to my room as soon as we're settled and we'll do that interview. But then, of course, Penny gets there first, and he's just like, go away. I'm feeling far too truthful right now.
That's a good line, yeah. Yeah, I agree that these guys really do feel authentic. And the reason why is they kind of lived it. When they were on set, they did all sorts of different practice sessions as a group, as a band. So much like with Straight Outta Compton that we covered last week, those guys re-recorded the entirety of that album. These guys were a band on tour. That's how you should do it.
Billy Crudup learned to play the guitar.
From Peter Frampton, by the way.
Right. Jason Lee is not doing his own vocals, but he was lip-singing the hell out of it. He was lip-syncing for his life.
Oh, man. I'm really impressed by him, too, because I've only ever seen him in other comedies. But when he gets really animated and he's fighting with the rest of the band, I really felt that.
I think Jason Lee is maybe one of the unsung heroes of this movie.
I agree.
Because he is great as just this egotistical lead singer. I love when they leave him at the gas station and he's like, no, it's fine. It's fine. I'm easy to forget. I'm only the fucking lead singer. But he also has the dynamic that a lot of bands have where there's the singer who doesn't really always play instruments. They show him play the piano once, but he doesn't play the guitar. He's just the lead singer. And then you've got Russell, who is the guitarist with mystique or whatever he described him as. And he's the best musician, and he's probably also the prime songwriter of the group.
Yeah, and they introduce it pretty early on that he's kind of too good for this band. He's too talented for this band.
And unfortunately, they all know it.
Right. So there's some resentment boiling under the surface here, and it comes out a couple of different times. But Betsy, I think my favorite moment in the entire movie is after they have their big fight, Russell goes to the high school party, gets high on acid, jumps into a pool, is there the entire night, and finally the manager brings him back and says, okay, yeah, you can quit the band after the end of the tour. We just got to come back. We got to get back onto the bus, go to the next thing. And everybody's just kind of sitting there in silence, listening to the radio, and Tiny Dancer from Elton John comes on the radio, and everybody starts singing along. And just like that, everybody's cool again. They don't even have to talk about it. They just continue on with their day.
We went from the band almost breaking up because they just don't know how to deal with each other in these moments where, you know, Russell's fame is Russell's looks are becoming a problem, Trent.
Yes.
Not just his talent and his fame, his looks are becoming a problem. They go from that, and he's trying to be like, can we just get to the place where this is funny? Like, the t-shirts are fucked up.
Right.
It's not my fault they made the t-shirts like this, but you're going to make it my thing about me.
Jason Lee is taking that fuck up as an intentional slight to the rest of the band, where, of course, the guitarist is the one in focus, and you can't see anybody else in this photo on the t-shirt.
And because I'm a drama queen, I'm gonna start a fight right now.
Yes.
And yeah, Russell is like, I'm done with this false life. I'm done with this whole fantasy of being a rock star.
I want nothing but real stuff.
I want it all to be real. And then he jumps off a roof after yelling, I am a golden god. You know, it's this weird offshoot of a night where he just kind of goes and touches grass, if you will.
Kinda.
Literally, he's like playing with a flower and he says, I hurt the flower.
Betsy, I think the one thought I had about that entire sequence of him at the party is those kids, those teenagers will remember that night for the rest of their fucking lives. A rock star came to my party and hung out and got high with me? That's amazing.
You will never, ever forget this night, and he will never remember it. He literally doesn't by the end of the movie. He's like, I didn't say I'm a golden god, or maybe I did.
Maybe I did. I'm on drugs.
I'm on drugs. But yeah, he goes through this whole night. They track him down. They get him back on the bus. And all of a sudden, through the power of music, they're friends again. Like, genuinely.
Thanks, Elton John.
That's the whole thing about it. They're all there for the music. And if they can get over their own shit, they play great together. There's a moment near the end of the movie where we actually get kind of a long sequence of them performing live, and we get like 3 or 4 different clips, different songs they're playing, and you can tell they're really vibing and they're really feeling each other. And this was a great show. Even in the like 40 seconds you get of that sequence, you can tell as a viewer, that was a great show they played tonight. And it's stuff like that that's going to make them famous if they can hold their egos together long enough to get there.
And that is beyond whether they are the headlining band, whether they are the opening band of the opening band. It doesn't fucking matter. If you bring the house down, you're on cloud 9.
Do you know how many great opening bands I have seen in my life? I will continue to preach this till the day I die, or at least until the day live concerts die. Because
they're already kind of dead.
That day could be coming any moment. But you have to go see the openers.
Yeah.
You might not have heard of them. You might not care. But guess what? Sometimes the opener ends up being the best part of your night, and you discover an artist you wouldn't have discovered otherwise.
Yeah.
And so many people who just show up late piss me the hell off, because I have seen some great openers that I like better than the headliners. I have bought tickets to a show to see the opener. And I'm like, I could watch the headliner. Okay, cool. But I care about the opener.
We had an entire Conversation Pit episode that is halfway just this conversation right here. So go to Patreon, you can get the entire conversation. But the crux of that whole thing is I had an idea, as long as we're talking about this, and I'm going to repeat it here. My idea is, yes, you have an opening band, you maybe have another opening band, then you have the headliner, and most of the time, you're completely spent after the headliner. That's why you come there, and then you go home at the end of the night. But my idea involves a come-down band. After the intensity of the main artist, you're feeling really jacked up. Why don't you get another band, maybe a less intense band, to come out to really bring everybody's energy back down a little bit, and then you can go home after that feeling, more relaxed than you would have been after the headliner stops. That's just my idea.
You need the opener, the headliner, and then the closer. That's what you need.
That's what I need. Yeah.
As an old man, you need to be brought down from that level of energy.
I mean, with the shows that I like to go to, yeah, I kind of need that.
Imagine going to a rock concert and then they play fucking Enya or something at the end.
I mean, I'm not going to complain.
Something super chill to just be like, yeah, that was fun. Now I need to take some NyQuil and go to sleep.
But you know what, Betsy? For the people who stick around for the closing band, those are the people you have their undivided attention as an artist. But anyway, that was just my little opinion.
Well, bringing it back to the movie, talking about Stillwater, let's talk about Billy Crudup, because this was the first movie I ever saw him in. And sometimes I forget that's who this is, because he's so good as a 70s rock star. He looks so natural in this environment with that mustache, with that haircut, with those clothes. Russell is just a fully formed person to me. What did you think of him in the movie?
Billy Crudup is not a guy I really seen a whole lot of, and I imagine that he really got a name for himself after this movie, but I really like him in everything that I've seen. I mean, this included. He is kind of treating it as he is not a tortured artist, but there are some feelings there that he wants to get out, and because he's so involved with all these people, with this band, and he clearly has feelings for Penny, but he has this past, he has a girlfriend, he's doing the things that he thinks that he's supposed to do, but he doesn't have time to be honest with himself. He doesn't have time for the real world because that's just going to fuck up his good time.
He's complicated, Trent.
That's a word, yeah, sure.
If you want to simplify it, he's complicated. And he is the first one to deny the story. When Rolling Stone calls and they're trying to fact check the quotes, he says, "Oh, hell no, I didn't do any of that. I didn't say any of that. Don't make us look dumb. No, no, no." But he's also the first one to call Rolling Stone back later and say, "Yeah, we lied. That whole thing, everything he wrote, it's true. I don't know what they're going to do with it, but I was honest with them."
Yeah, which sucks because after their little airplane confessional, he looks back at him and says, "You know what? Just be honest. Write what you want to write. I trust you." But because he hasn't had it all laid out in front of him that, okay, I did this, I said that, I did this then, and I was this way with this guy. When you lay it all out in front of him like that, it's like, oh God, this really makes me sound shitty, or makes the band sound shitty, or whatever. He doesn't want to admit that this is what his real life actually is.
The truth is difficult to digest at times, Trent, especially if you're living this fantasy life on the road as a rock star.
Outside of it as well. Everybody gets to see what it is behind the curtain. And that's what people are most interested in, which just makes you an interesting person, an interesting band.
And of course, they give a shot at the end of the movie. Rolling Stone does publish the story. They put it on the cover as they said they were going to. And it's because William's a good writer. The story is so good. They really wanted to publish it. It's just that when the band is denying everything, they can't. It's bad journalism to publish something when it's been denied to hell. If they say it didn't happen, you have to believe the band, in those days especially. So they could have just trashed the whole thing, but I'm sure they were thrilled to get a phone call from him because it meant they could actually publish that great story. Because when he writes it, the first lines are, "I'm flying in an airplane and we're all about to die." Like, that's the opening sentence.
Yeah, it would definitely get people's attention. But I wanted to talk about here how the fact that he kind of went against the Philip Seymour Hoffman character, what he told him to, not be friends with the band that you're covering. Don't get too involved with these guys, because he says they want to get you drunk on feeling like you belong. And at the end of the movie, they have this conversation about, I met you. You're not cool. I'm not cool, which is why we're doing what we're doing. But we're smarter than them. But in the end, William goes against what he says. He does make friends with these guys, and he can be a good writer about them. He writes an excellent story about them. You just have to be a better journalist than that.
And if the band really wants to consider him a friend, they have to accept that he's doing it honestly. Like, he's not just writing a bunch of bullshit, guys. Both things can be true. I can be your friend and I can be a good journalist.
Yeah, and going back to Philip Seymour Hoffman here, he's playing a real guy. Lester Bangs was a real music critic and journalist. I don't know why I know his name, because I don't think that he has ever been portrayed in another movie, but for some reason I know the name.
Somewhere along the way, you picked it up and you've heard of the guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and although he's not in the movie very much, another iconic performance from Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Oh yeah.
You didn't mention him in the intro, but when his name came up, you were like, oh yeah, he is in this, isn't he?
Yeah, I totally forgot that he was in this.
Speaking of people who are in the movie, we have got to talk about Frances McDormand. My God. There are two performances in the movie that got nominated for Oscars, and it's Kate Hudson and Frances McDormand.
Holy shit. I did not know that.
Both nominated for Best Supporting Actress. And this was the first time I'd ever seen Frances McDormand. This was my touch point for her for a really long time. She is insane in this movie, but in like a good way. She's an overprotective mother. Her husband died. She's been single parenting. She's a college professor, which means she gets really weird, intense ideas about being intellectual, and that translates to her parenting.
Yeah. She's like halfway a hippie in a lot of the things that she says about, nature and nutrition and things like that. They don't really go into it that much.
She says something about soy cutlets.
Yeah. And she's got a big complex about people being on drugs all the time. Even Simon and Garfunkel. You can't listen to Simon and Garfunkel because they're on the weed. You can see it in their eyes on the album cover, Betsy.
It is the music of drugs and promiscuous sex. And so you can't listen to it.
She really is one of the best things in the movie, Betsy. And I think another favorite moment of mine is when she gets Russell on the phone. Russell wants to play around and just takes the phone away from William and starts talking to the mom. And she just lays into him in a way that I don't think that he'll ever be the same after that conversation.
He never fully recovers from this phone call.
Two different people in the movie say, your mom gonna freak me out.
She's trying really hard to correct some mistakes she made with her daughter. The daughter could not wait to get out of that house when she was 18. So she's been holding on even tighter to her son, but she knows she has to let go, which is why she agrees to let him go on the road with this band at 15 years old and expects him to be responsible and don't take drugs and just call me every single day. And I need to know what's going on.
And have I mentioned don't take drugs?
And you can't miss any more than one test, and you have to be back by graduation. And she is trying to stay in contact with him, but it's that empty nest problem where she's really like freaked out by the fact that rock stars have kidnapped my son. And it's overwhelming for her. But when they come home together, that moment where he just randomly runs into his sister at the airport because she's a stewardess now, because that's what we used to call him in those days.
Yeah.
They go home and she just embraces both of them. She's just so overwhelmed. Like the door flies open when they're barely on the porch.
I love when her and Zooey Deschanel hug each other and Zoe is like, I didn't apologize to you, even though she says, I forgive you. Like, no, I didn't say I'm sorry for anything.
But then they laugh and they can just be okay with each other.
Yeah.
So yeah, she is
that was a great moment.
She's another flawed person. She's trying her best, but she gets a lot of the really great comedic moments because she is playing it so seriously. She's getting the laugh because you're right. She freaks people out. She's way too intense for this world of rock and roll.
Yeah. Which, hey, a lot of guys in rock bands, sometimes you need that influence. Even when you're on the road, maybe it would have been better if you had somebody like that on tour with you, to be the tour mother.
To ground you and actually keep you in check. And it kind of works because even though Russell kind of gets tricked into going to see William at the end of the movie, she says, I felt we had a connection on the phone and there's hope for you yet. It means a lot that you came here and you owe him an apology.
But yes, I do.
Yes, I do. And guess what? They have that conversation and he does apologize and he does the right thing. There is hope for Russell yet, and maybe fame won't destroy him.
Yeah.
And we can thank his mom for that in part.
Just a bit of an aside here. I read in the trivia that Cameron Crowe's real mother is kind of depicted with the Frances McDormand character. And on set, apparently, his own real mother was going to be on set, but he was hell-bent against his own mother and Frances McDormand meeting and having any kind of interaction to prevent the character from being tainted by the inspiration of the character.
He didn't want there to be undue influence on her performance.
Exactly. So he went to great lengths to have that not happen. But there was one moment where he kind of went off set for a little while, and when he came back, those two were having lunch together.
He looks away moment. For one moment. I can't trust you for 5 minutes, Mom.
So it really comes through the screen. But Betsy, I think we have to talk about just a few other cameos that show up in the movie. First of all, I think the one that blew my mind the most, he doesn't have any lines. It's at the poker game when they're trading the girls for beer. Fucking Mitch Hedberg is in this movie?
No lines. Blink and you'll miss him. I don't know how many times I saw this movie before I knew he was in it. And in 2026, I don't know how many people know who Mitch Hedberg is unless you are a deep lover of comedy.
Yeah, and I wonder how did he make it onto this set? Maybe Cameron Crowe is just a fan and his look kind of fit with the look of everybody else here.
Who the hell knows? Because if you look at any of his stand-up specials, it looks like he walked off of one of those and into this movie because that's just what the dude looked like.
Exactly.
But yeah, I was just so surprised when I found out he was in this. I was like, bullshit. And I had to go find my DVD and forward to this scene. And he has no lines. He's just in the corner of the room.
Sitting there.
But he's not the only person who shows up in this. There's so many people who are before they were famous, especially for some reason in the comedic circles, because Nick Swardson is in this.
Has one line.
Another Minnesota comedian, oddly. What's with that? Mark Maron is in this.
I really like the Mark Maron scene because he's just out there yelling at this manager for trashing their green room, and he's yelling at him about, close the gate, where they just fucking smash right through the thing. It's well before anybody knows who the hell Mark Maron is outside of people who really follow comedy. And another couple of comedic actors here. Number one, Jay Baruchel is one of the big fans who's following around Led Zeppelin.
He is such a baby in this movie.
He is a little baby.
He's 17 or 18 here, but he doesn't even look like he's hit puberty yet.
Yes. And finally, Jimmy Fallon is the guy who comes in and interviews the band to be their next manager because he wants to take them to stardom. You guys are languishing in this bus. I'm going to get you a fucking plane. And we all see what happens with that plane.
And this was his very first movie role. And he had already been on SNL for a couple of years at this point.
Yeah.
But this is a role that is weird. I don't know if I like it, but I don't hate him in this movie.
No, because he's not being Jimmy Fallon. That's the difference.
He jumps out for just a second when he does his Mick Jagger impersonation.
He does. He also says something about, you're not going to see Mick Jagger up there when he's 50. That's a funny line.
Which at this point he was 57, and now we're 26 years removed, and he's still touring.
Stage.
The man will die on stage. He will never stop.
Yeah.
And then in another small role, you've got Rainn Wilson. This is a few years before The Office started. So you've got all these weird people who are primarily known for comedy in this movie that has nothing to do with the comedy world.
In a weird way, it reminds me of how the Safdie brothers make their movies, where it's a lot of people, just disparate people from backgrounds that you don't expect to have be actors in a movie, and there they are.
Maybe they don't fit as far as what they do for a living, but they look the part. So you're getting in this movie.
Yeah.
You would think it'd be a lot of musicians, but really it's just Peter Frampton. He shows up.
Yeah, he's in a really, really short scene.
And he was a consultant on the movie, so he at least makes sense.
Right.
And Nancy Wilson of Heart did a lot of the music for the movie. So there are people who were in this time and in this place who can speak to the authenticity of the stuff that's being shown on screen.
Yeah, that is the one disappointment that I have about this movie. There aren't more real musicians here, but I don't think it needs it.
I feel like it would be a distraction. Like when he goes to the concert at the beginning, he's supposed to talk to Black Sabbath. They don't show Black Sabbath. They just show a limousine pulling up and everyone's going, it's Sabbath. as they're going through the door. We never see Ozzy. We never see the band because it would take away from the main point of the movie. It's not about the guy who is famous. It's about the people who are almost famous. I did it, Trent.
There you go.
It's the name of the movie.
Yay! Good job, Betsy.
I did it. Queen of the segues. That's me. So speaking of segues, Trent, did you have anything else that you wanted to touch on before we wrap up this episode and this month of I'm with the Band movies?
Not about the movie itself. I think the message that comes out of this movie and a lot of the movies that we have covered for this series of movies is that music is generational. You need to pass along the good stuff that you have discovered in your life. Pass that on to the next generation. Let your kids know about the stuff that you listen to and why you listen to it. What did it mean to you when you were that age when you discovered it? Because unfortunately, bands like this, rock music, is dying if it isn't dead already. And a lot of the ideas, a lot of the feelings that come from being in a rock band and just seeing a rock show, that feeling is also dying. And if there's anything that I would say as a word of advice, is go to more shows. Go to whatever your shitty venue is. Pay the money to go see a band. It doesn't matter if you've heard of them or not. Just be with like-minded people. Go and see these bands, because someday they might be the biggest thing in the world.
Now you're speaking my language, Trent. Well, that's going to do it then. We made it through April, all of our I'm with the Band movies. I'm glad we did this. This was a good batch of movies, I feel like.
Yeah, it was a good mix of a lot of different feelings, a lot of different kinds of music, a lot of different bands. There's even some through lines here that we're kind of picking out as we're watching them. But yeah, a really good series.
And I'm going to pivot a little bit here and give a plug to our Friends podcast. It happened completely by accident, but our friends Seth and Michelle over on Movie Friends also are doing a musician month in the month of April. And miraculously, we didn't have any overlap. We covered completely different movies, but in talking to Seth, I found out we almost did cover some of the same films this month. So if you like movies about musicians, movies about bands, go check out Movie Friends because they were covering a similar topic to us this entire month. I don't know how that happened. There's something in the water. We were just on the same wavelength.
Yeah, go check out Movie Friends. We have appeared on their show before. And yeah, we did not plan any of this. I'm sure they didn't plan this either. We had this series picked out months ago and we just decided, okay, April is the month to do it.
But yeah, we just wanted to give them a little plug because we've been enjoying those episodes alongside our own here this month.
There you go.
But we would now love to hear from you, dear listeners. What do you think of Almost Famous? Send us your thoughts to neverseenitpod@gmail.com. If you don't want to send us an email, you could also send us a message on any of our social media platforms. We did get a message from my friend Jimmy about our recent episode on Sing Street. Here's what he said about this movie. I love this movie. It's just so wholesome. Not a perfect movie by any means, but it has some great performances and themes and the creativity in music, especially for a coming-of-age film. I'm glad you and Trent really enjoyed it.
We did. And the more I have thought about that movie, the more I think it's gonna be one of those that we could just throw on and not really have to pay that close attention to. I haven't downloaded the songs that I want out of that movie yet, but I plan to.
Yeah, and I think there's probably a crossover for people who like Almost Famous and Sing Street. I feel like those two movies have a lot of similarities that people who like one are probably gonna like the other one.
Well, it's discoverability of music.
You've also got an older sibling introducing the younger sibling to their records they like.
Absolutely.
So thanks, Jimmy, for sending us that message about the movie.
Yeah, thanks.
As I said, if you want to be like Jimmy, you can message us on social media. You could also email us neverseenitpod@gmail.com. If you're looking for additional content, you can also go to patreon.com/neverseenitpod, where we have a lot of episodes. Trent, I don't know the actual number, but we've been doing it for over 2 years. We've got a ton of stuff over there that you can listen to for just $5 a month.
Yeah, it's a whole lot of stuff that we would never cover on this show. We talk about some topics that we would never cover on this show. It is the literal definition of extra bonus premium content.
That address again, patreon.com/neverseenitpod. We'd love it if you checked it out. So that is going to do it for Almost Famous. But Trent, for those people who are paying attention, they may have noticed that this movie that we just talked about was movie number 399, which means that next week will be our 400th movie that we have covered in doing this podcast. And because it's a special occasion and because it's May, we are bringing back a returning champion series. We are doing our 3rd annual Big Movie May, where we pick some really big blind spots from our watch list to talk about the next 5 weeks.
And Betsy, not only is it our 3rd annual Big Movie May, I am calling this Biggest Movie May because, guys, we got 5 weeks in May. That is the biggest Big Movie May we've ever done. And the selections, oh my God, the selections we have made for the entire month of May are gonna blow your goddamn mind.
And it is a reminder to you about what this podcast is all about, because we cover movies that we have never seen. So next week, Movie 400, the kickoff of Biggest Movie May, is going to be a movie that I have seen exactly one time, and it was somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 years ago. But Trent, you have never, ever seen this movie, and it is finally time. Tell our listeners, what is our first big movie?
For Biggest Movie May, we are kicking it off. Movie number 400 will be The Godfather.
Yes, listeners, Trent has never seen The Godfather. We've probably touched on that somewhere in the podcast.
Probably,
but now is the time. So come back next week for the start of Biggest Movie May. Until then, my name is Betsy.
And my name is Trent.
And we'll see you next week.
I'm so excited.